So, welcome to the UFC 212 recap. We're going to get straight into it. So, I picked Aldo to beat Max Holloway. I thought this was going to go all the way to decision. First two rounds, I had Aldo winning. Not by much, just winning a few exchanges. And then in the third round, Holloway dropped him, jumped on top, ground and pound him, looked like he was going to submit him from the back at one point. But yeah, your new champion, Max Holloway. And very impressive as well, He took some of Aldo's shots. This is a new era. It's calling the Conor McGregor rematch, I guess. I doubt it's going to get the Conor McGregor rematch, but, you might as well call for that one because that's a worthy one. Moving on to the co-main event. Again, I fucked up. I said this was also going to go all the way with Kovalkiewicz winning. Early first round, Gadea drops her, gets the back, submits with a rear naked choke. I don't know if it's enough to say she deserves the Jacek rematch, but I guess there's going to be a lot of people calling for that. Then I'd said that Vitor was going to win by KO. This was actually went all the way. I was quite surprised. Both guys looked pretty good. Well, I'd say both guys looked better than I thought they would do. The first round, there was a really weird incident where Nate had Vitor down and he was on top and the referee just kind of stood them up. The second round was pretty close. There was a lot of good exchanges. And I thought it was, up to this point, it was really hard to call. Third round, I thought was for Vitor. I thought this was possibly going to be a split decision. I was wrong. Everybody gave it to Vitor. Of course, they gave it to Vitor. It's in his home. This was his retirement fight or whatever. So at least I got the victor right. Then moving on to the Bombase against Costa fight. This one actually I picked perfectly. I think if we have anything to say about this, well, it wasn't really in the fight, but before the fight, Bombase got pulled up by the referees checking the nails and toenails for his toenails not being cut properly. We're talking about professional fighters. This kind of thing should be checked beforehand, not at the cage side. I don't know why when they're wrapping up their hands, they're not checking their nails. You shouldn't be doing this out in front of the crowd. It looks ridiculous, and he should, feel ashamed that that's the case. Actually, the fight, fantastic fight, fantastic first round, really exciting. Bombase was on his bike a little bit more than I thought he would do, but obviously that just speaks to the power of Costa. Yeah, the finish, I recommend you finding it somewhere and watching it, because he drops him and then he's raining down hell from a standing position just over Bombase. So Costa is looking like another good fighter with top prospects. Then we had the Yancy Medeiros against Eric Silva. This one opened up the pay-per-view. I said that Silva was going to win by submission. The first round, both guys looked pretty good. They were landing hard shots. I would have given the first round to Eric Silva. The second round, Yancy Medeiros caught him, I think, with a right cross and then left hook. And then from there, just knocked him out. So it was a bit of a surprise. I thought it was a good fight while it was going on. Eric Silva looked really dangerous, but you've got to keep your guard up when you're throwing leather. Anybody can win. Then who was the next one? Marlon Rice against Asuncao. Yeah, so this one I actually said was going to be a decision to Rafael Asuncao. with a bit of a, let's say, controversial decision, and I think that was a fair call, because a lot of people had this down for Marlon Moraes, and one idiot judge had this 30-27 for Sun Tzu. I actually had the first and second round down for a Sun Tzu, and the third was clearly for Moraes. I don't see how anybody watching that could have scored that for a Sun Tzu. I would say the first and second round were pretty tight. I think the two shots at the end of the first round probably won it for a Sun Tzu. Again, I would say the second round was really tight, but Sun Tzu did more damage in my opinion. He had better positioning, and the third round, I think Moraes, actually won that quite comfortably. It was a good showing by Marlon Moraes. I think in terms of debuts, it's a very nice debut to have had. I think next time out he'll be very comfortable, and he's going to be a player in this division. A Sun Tzu is no slouch, so I'm pretty impressed with Marlon Moraes. I think it was a good show for the Brazilians. I don't know what you do with either guy afterwards, to be quite honest, but it was a good match. Then we're going to talk about Antonio Carlos Jr. against Eric Spicely. I picked the Mr. Shoeface by tap out, and Mr. Shoeface won by tap out. Basically, there was a poor takedown by Spicely, and he got controlled all the way. Then Carlos Jr. took his back, and that was that. The first round they spent a lot of time in 50-50 guard, and I think Spicely was wanting to show, newly minted black belt Spicely was wanting to show that he could roll with one of the best in the world, which was a mistake. At the end of that round, Carlos Jr. took his back and probably won the first round as well, but the second round he just gave Carlos Jr. what he wanted. I do think Spicely's a good fighter. I think he'll do quite well. I think he's a top 10 guy, but Carlos Jr. looks like he's heading towards that title shot. Johnny Eduardo and Matthew Lopez. I picked Johnny Eduardo to win this by KO. How wrong was I? Lopez won this by TKO. I have to say, I think that it was a bit of a late stoppage. Both were going for big shots. Johnny Eduardo went for a kind of a leg lock, heel hook maybe, but Lopez just ground and pound him to hell and got the win. Very impressive defensive work by Lopez, but I wouldn't take anything away from Johnny Eduardo. I think he's got a future in the UFC as well. Then we were on to Ilia Alexandre against Brian Keller. This was a late replacement. I didn't really know much about Keller going into this, but basically, I don't know if Alexandre knew much about him either, because according to the commentary team, the guillotine was one of Keller's go-to moves, and actually he got in the perfect guillotine. Very impressive submission. I think a lot of people are going to sit up and take notice of that. That's a impressive, win against a black belt in jiu-jitsu, submitting them in Brazil. There's not too much you can say about it. It wasn't a really long fight. Then we move on to the ladies, the Vivian Pereira against Jamie Moil. Pretty much played out exactly like I thought it would. I picked the decision for Pereira. She got the decision. This fight pretty much stayed standing most of the time, and Pereira just boxed her. Nothing fancy, pretty basic stuff, and Moil just didn't have an answer for it. I stand by what I said in my preview video. These two aren't going to be making big waves in the UFC. Pereira, I do think, has a future, but she needs to be brought along very gently. She's very green at this stage for top level UFC. She should really probably be fighting Victor. Then we have Mr. Wallhead against Luan Chagas. And you know, can we just have a call out for eye pokes? You know, there was a big eye poke in the Gustafsson-Glover fight. Now, Glover graciously said that wouldn't have affected things. I do think that the eye poke here had a big effect on things. And for sure, even if these eye pokes are judged accidental, they have a huge impact. So you should call for a point deduction, especially if it happens in the first round, or if you're in the title fight, happens in the first 2 or 3 rounds. It should definitely be a point deduction, because later in the fight that eye's still messed up, and you know, the guy who poked him has a real unfair advantage. Now, a lot of people talk about, oh, what's the best technique, what's the best martial arts move for winning a street fight? Eye poke. It may not be a typical martial arts technique, but you want to win a fight, poke someone in the eye. They can't see. It's going to be a big benefit to you. Now, to be fair to Chagas, he was much improved from his last fight. He was very calm, very measured, countering everything really well. So he was doing he was probably in charge of this before the nasty eye poke. After that, you know, Chagas ate up the lead leg with kicks, and late in the round put Warhead down and then got the rear naked choke. I think it's fair to say that Warhead had come back into the second round. He was doing a lot better in the second round than he was in the first, until the eye poke happened. Would he have gone on to win the match? That's very, very debatable. But I think the eye poke was a major turning point, or a major factor in him losing it. So, you know, the UFC really needs to take care of these eye pokes. It doesn't seem to be a priority for them. You know, it's been this way for a long time, and it's going to continue to be a big problem, I think. Then we were talking about the opening fight was Marcos Antonio Belton against Davison Figueiredo. So I picked Mr. Figueiredo by TKO, and the ref stopped it in between round 2 and round 3. So the first round, you know, I think the Davison controlled this on the floor, but it was fair to say that Beltran landed some big elbows at the end, so you could have called that first round either way, I guess. Depends if you want to do about damage or the time control. Round 2, most of it was on the ground. At the death, it looked like Figueroa had put him down and possibly got the TKO. The referee let the bell ring, and you know, it looked like the guy had been saved by the bell. But you know, in between the rounds, the referee looked at him and said, you know, it's enough, Beltran's done. And also, Beltran lost his mother during the week and still fought, you know, so there are mitigating circumstances here. I don't know to what extent that was playing into his head, you know, or whether he would have won or lost anyway. So I think all in all, I did pretty well with the card, with the decisions. It was the main fights that really I didn't do so well on. We've got a new champion in Max Holloway. There's a new era. So the Brazil fight card, I think, was pretty good all around. Let's hope that it continues next week in New Zealand for Lewis versus Hunt. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Let me know what you think of the graphics and stuff like that. Also, I started doing some series trying to promote the lesser known women of MMA who have got Instagram accounts. So have a look at those videos, share them, support the ladies, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.